This episode of the Hormone Genius podcast is sponsored by Radiant Clinic, located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Dr. Monica Minger is a board-certified family medicine physician who founded Radiant Clinic to help women restore natural menstrual cycles, to improve health, and promote fertility. She specializes in evaluation and treatment using menstrual cycle analysis to improve the lives of women and couples. She's able to see clients in person or for virtual visits if you reside anywhere in the state of Iowa. Radiant Clinic also offers services with hormone coaches, fertility awareness charting instructors, a health coach, and a dietitian to help you achieve your menstrual cycle and fertility goals. Make sure to check out their website at radiantclinic.com, where you can schedule a free discovery call with Dr. Minger to learn more about if their services are the right fit for you. You can also follow Dr. Minger's podcast called Cycle Wisdom, where she provides concise episodes about topics relevant to your hormones and menstrual cycles.
I do want women to know that there is an alternative to suppressing their bodies with hormones, that they can see their body as a good and they can live in that body holistically.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
It's amazing.
Join co-hosts Jamie Rocci and Teresa Kenny as they educate women about the beauty of the feminine design and empower women to take charge of their health.
They're going to be so amazing. You're going to be so empowered by understanding your feminine genius and your hormone genius. I don't think I could live my whole life knowing this and not sharing it with anyone.
Hello, and welcome to the Hormone Genius podcast. I am here with my awesome co-host, Jamie, and we are going to do an amazing episode today. For those of you who have been out there and been pregnant before, which many of you I know have, maybe you've had a situation where you've thought, gosh, I kind of thought I'd be happier when I was pregnant. Or maybe you struggled more in pregnancy physically or mentally than you had ever expected to. Well, today we're going to dive into this kind of, this area of mental health around pregnancy, because it's really important. It's an incredible time in a woman's life, of course, when she's expecting a child. And there are times when things come up that are unexpected. Today we have with us Amanda Dailey, and Amanda's from Missouri. She and her husband, Sean, 4 children. Amanda went through an experience of perinatal anxiety and depression. And they have started a ministry called the Philomena Project. And it's named in honor of their daughter, Philomena Grace, and in honor of Saint Philomena, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about. And they want to help women across the country, across the world, who also struggle with women's mental health issues around pregnancy, and empower women to kind of come out of that and live a life of grace, hope, and peace. So Amanda, thank you for being with us today and being open to sharing this story, because, it's not easy, I'm sure, to go back to that place where you were struggling. And we hope that we can inspire people to really have hope in this area.
Yes, thank you so much to you both for having me on and for allowing me to share our family story, because it's just not my story. It's really encompassed our whole family.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Amanda, start off with just giving us, kind of the, where it all started and, what was the place that you almost got to where the struggle was for real?
One of my best friends from college said to me that I'm an expert in my own experience and to not discount that. And so that's really helped me to have the courage to share my story. So I guess where it all begins is in the fall of 2021. I was probably halfway through my pregnancy with Philomena. At that point, we had not given her a name yet. We knew she was a girl, but I was on the regular having panic attacks. The world was in a crazy place a year and a half into COVID. And I had 3 little kids. We had them 1, 2, 3, 3 and 3 years. So busy mom, and then expecting our 4th. And you could just say I was overwhelmed. So I was just having panic attacks a couple times a week. And if you've had a panic attack, how that feels. It's a terrible feeling. You feel like you're dying. You can't breathe. Your chest is tight. and it can take hours to kind of settle your body down. So that was just becoming a regular thing for me. Fast forward, I guess, until November. I remember I was very overwhelmed. It was Thanksgiving and we had to miss Thanksgiving because all the kids were sick. And that was just sad for me to miss family time. And I remember being very overwhelmed, having a panic attack, and then having an intrusive thought. And an intrusive thought, I try to use language that will help people understand. It's just kind of a scary thought that comes up in your mind that comes out of nowhere and it frightens you. So I had a thought about harming myself and my unborn baby. And that it scared me to no end. And with intrusive thoughts, they can stay with you and they just replay over and over and over again, and you can't unstick them from your mind. I went over to a dear friend of mine's for coffee, and she noticed I was just a little anxious. And she said, "Are you okay? Are you just nervous to have another little one to take care of?" And I just burst into tears and said, "Yes, I feel overwhelmed with what I already have going on. How am I going to handle another one?" And she said, "You'll be okay. You can do this." So I, picked myself back up and I went home with Gabriel, our third son. And, I went home and just started doing the dishes, tidying up the house, and I just couldn't stop crying. So I called a friend of mine from the parish, and she has 7 children. And I said to her, like, "Have you ever gone through anything like this where you just can't stop crying all the time? You're just down, you're pregnant, you should be so joyful because you're pregnant and expecting this new life." And she's like, "Amanda, yes, life can be very overwhelming, but I know you're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay." And she said to me, I remember the last couple of weeks, it's so out of the blue, Amanda, but our 2-year-old daughter has been saying every night at prayer, like, "We must pray for Mrs. Dailey." Every single night, she's been praying for you intentionally. And at that moment, I just said to Andrea, like, "Thank you for sharing that. That gives me so much comfort and peace." So I hung up with her and I went back to doing the dishes, and I got this deep feeling in my soul, like, you cannot be alone with yourself. You might hurt yourself. So, so my dad, he is an OBGYN. He, in 2009, changed his medical practice to standard OBGYN care, prescribing contraception. He considered himself a Catholic physician because he didn't do, sterilizations. But anyway, he had a big conversion of heart in regards to his faith and how to practice women's health care. So in 2009, he totally stopped prescribing contraception and went through the Dr. Hilger's naprotechnology training and became a certified practitioner with them. So that root cause medicine, trying to find the root cause. So my dad's journey and his big surrender to the Lord in that area of his livelihood, he's my hero in life. So at that moment, I was like, I need to call my dad. I need to tell him there's something very wrong. So I called him. He called me right back after his morning office hours. He was very calm with me on the phone. I told him, "Dad, there's something very wrong. I think I'm going to hurt myself." And he said, "Amanda, you're not going to hurt yourself. I want you to hang up the phone and get a drink of water and sit down." And while he and I were off the phone for about a minute, he called my mom immediately and said, "You need to race over to Amanda and Sean's house. There's something wrong." And so my mom was with my aunt that day, and they came over and they just asked me, they got me some lunch. They got Gabriel and then my son, Jack, who had just come home from preschool, settled. And we were having some lunch, and they said to me, "Is everything okay? Have you had thoughts of harming yourself?" And I just broke down in tears, so ashamed to admit, like, yes, I have had those thoughts. I'm sorry, everyone. So that's kind of where the journey begins. The shining light on that darkness of what I kept inside for so long, of those terrible thoughts, they finally came to the light, and that's where the healing really started. So sorry.
No, it's okay, Amanda. Obviously, that's a really difficult thing to share. And again, imagine all of the women out there who have had those feelings and have felt the same sort of kind of like it's buried down within them. And they're fearful of letting anyone know that darkness because obviously when you say to yourself, why would I harm myself? I have 3 kids, right? Like logically, logically, it doesn't make sense to you. Why do I feel this way? And this is the truth of mental health. There is no shame because it's not a choice. It's not something you chose. It's not like you're saying, oh, I just would like to wake up and feel like the world's ending today. Like no one asked for that. So mental health is real because it's a medical condition. There is no stigma. There is no shame. And we want to help women realize that if you're struggling out there, if you have ever felt like self-harming, if you have ever felt like you would hurt your own baby, believe me, I have talked to many, many women in those shoes. And it has nothing to do with a failure on your part. And it has nothing to do with, some sort of a choice that you made to be in that situation. It is true, though, that you need real help in that situation, that you need real help. And of course, Amanda, you had the courage to call people that you trust. And this is something, if you're out there, again, whether it be a friend, a parent, a coworker, you have to call someone you trust because those people are the people that love you and know that you are going to need, to take the next step to get professional help. Yes. I really appreciate you being honest, Amanda, about that, because that's a really hard place to be in, of course.
Man, especially because, like you were saying, there's like this feeling of great shame and almost like the secrecy. We've heard of this before. Like when you hide something, you don't put it in the light, it can fester and fester and grow and grow. And this is such an important topic. Amanda, as you were talking, I started crying. Thank heavens we have mute. Our listeners have either experienced something like this or know of someone very dear to them who have had this feeling of darkness. And what I'm excited about to get into your story is the redemption, that there were physical things underlying some of these emotions that you're going to get to, which I think is really important to talk about. But before we get into that, I have a question for you. What was your mental health like before pregnancy? Yes. What was it like during your first pregnancies, and why was it different this time with this story that you're sharing?
So, just a little background. I had no diagnosed mental health issues. Prior to this, I was 31 when I was pregnant with our 4th, I think. Yeah, 31. And so I went to an all-girls school in St. Louis, very high achieving. I guess you could say I had undiagnosed anxiety, but that kind of drove me. So like my mental health, it did not look like laying in bed, couldn't get out of bed. It was just like let's keep going, keep your mind going, racing. Let's check everything off the to-do list. With my first pregnancy, during the pregnancy, it was totally fine. I was working full time in the financial world. So go. But I did struggle a bit after the birth of our daughter, Rose. And a dear priest friend of mine said to me after that delivery, you are not your thoughts, because I did have some thoughts of harming myself and Philomena then. And I reached out to my OB. They gave me progesterone injections. And I know you both have spoken about that and the power of progesterone. I believe it. My dad practices it. And it did help me with the birth of Rose. I had 3 or 4 injections and I was fine. And that solved the issue there. I had no issues in my second pregnancy or postpartum. Third pregnancy, now that we've really gone through this mental health journey with Philomena's pregnancy and birth, I can look back on my other pregnancies and recognize, oh yeah, I was having some mental health struggles in Gabriel's pregnancy and postpartum. Things that I didn't really know were mental health struggles at that time.
I just want to review, just in case someone's listening to this and hasn't heard our postpartum depression episode, you should go back and listen to that, because we won't have time probably to dive deep into the progesterone. But progesterone is a very, very calming hormone that can be used in postpartum, but it actually can be used in pregnancy as well. Mm-hmm. And so this might be something to think about, because progesterone helps GABA, which is a neurotransmitter. It helps the brain kind of normalize serotonin levels. So it's about really helping the brain kind of stop a process or get off that rat wheel of intrusive thoughts. Progesterone could be helpful, but it usually is not the only thing someone needs when they have severe mental health issues. And so, Amanda, maybe you can tell us, what were the things that you had to do to get out of where you were at? Yes. And what help did you get?
Yeah. So after that December 14th day in 2021, I have an awesome OB, and he right away got me in. He made a personal call to a psychiatrist friend. He got me in the next day with a psychiatrist. So my husband, Sean, and I, 8 a.m. the next morning after that day, met with a psychiatrist. And he said to me very straight, he said, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Depending on how you answer, we're either going to recommend you have just some care, like babysitting assistance and some time out for yourself, or I'm going to put you on a pharmaceutical. And so I said, okay, at that point, I was just ready to do whatever to not feel like this. And so after I answered my questions and I was honest with him about harming myself, because I did even have thoughts of like, I just want relief from this darkness. And I remember saying to him, like, I had thoughts, I just want to be with Jesus. I just want to be at peace. And that's when he's like, okay, we're going to put you on a low dose SSRI. And Amanda, like, I see this very often. You are not a rare case. This happens to a lot of women, and you will be okay. You will feel better. And I held on to those words. They kept me going. So I did. I started a low dose of an SSRI, and then for the next 4 weeks before Philomena's birth, I had constant care. I had dear friends of mine, girlfriends that would come over. And the moment Sean left the house for work, they were with me and the kids. I guess you could call it kind of babysitting. But that's okay. Like, I am okay saying that. I needed that. I needed that peace of mind that, yes, you are safe and you are not going to harm yourself. So I would go over to my parents. My mom has the gift of staying home. And so she would help me take care of the kids, and I would just do one of those two things. I never was alone until that medicine really started kicking in at that 4-week mark. I remember having a little calendar, and I would mark every single day I took a dose, because that was one day closer to me feeling like Amanda again. So at the 4-week mark, about a couple of weeks before Philly was born, I started feeling like myself again. And it was such a miracle. I was like, praise God. And then the week she delivered, we all got the stomach flu. And I really believe that's what put me into labor. So my husband and I went to the hospital. I was 8 centimeters dilated, and we delivered Philomena a couple hours later. So the second kind of part of my story really takes place after her delivery. I had kind of thought like, oh, I'm all better now. This pharmaceutical has helped me get to be me again. I didn't think that there was going to be a second part to this story. But I delivered Philomena, and within an hour of her delivery, I took a shower and I had a panic attack in the shower. And I got out and I said to my husband, like, there's something wrong. There's something happening to my body. I can't catch my breath. I don't know what's happening. So we called the nurses button, and they came in and they checked all my vitals, and they said, everything looks fine, Amanda. Let's just get your next dose of your pharmaceutical going. So we did that. And then these intrusive thoughts started again, and they started very strong thoughts of harming myself and Philomena. And they felt like they were overtaking me. And that's when like the shame really took root, because I was like, I've already burdened people by help. People have given up their lives the last month helping me to get better. And here I am sick again. Like, what's wrong? Like, I have to take care of this baby and my family. Like, I've had enough help from people. So there was that, like, I can't ask for help again. And like, if I do tell people what's in my mind, what are they going to do to me? Are they going to take my baby away? Are they going to lock me up? So I just buried it again, and I just prayed. And so I went home with my baby. It's funny how you can really put on a face, like, as a woman, and like hide everything that's inside. I've been told I'm very stoic. So you just, like, you as a mom, you just keep going. So those thoughts continued at home, those thoughts of harm to myself and my baby. And so I called my OB and I said, there's something wrong. Didn't go into it because, again, that shame. But I said, I think I need progesterone, because I had that after all my pregnancies before. So we did 3-4 injections of progesterone. That gave me like a little relief, but then the thoughts started returning. And my husband and I thought, okay, maybe we just need to let the pharmaceutical kick back in again. Cause, I just went through this big hormone change in my brain. That's the big thing with SSRIs. It takes time to work, and any dose change, it's kind of recalibrating all over again. So I just kind of struggled through again. And then finally in March 2022, right before Philomena was baptized, I said to my husband, like, I can't do this anymore. There's something wrong with me. And so we called the psychiatrist again, and he put me on an antipsychotic. So I was now on an SSRI and an antipsychotic. And that was something just Sean and I, we weren't really sharing that because, there's just so much shame, I feel like, about mental health. And I was ashamed. That we did that, and I still wasn't finding relief, but here I was on 2 pharmaceuticals. And so, and also I kept asking myself, like, what happened to me? What happened to my brain? Like, how did I get here? So I started saying to Sean, like, I need to get a therapist to help me understand what happened to me, because I've never had something like this happen. And so we found a therapist, wasn't a great fit. So I moved on after a couple of appointments, to another therapist that my mother-in-law suggested, who specialized in postpartum. She's a psychologist. And that was in June 2022. So about 6 months after Philly was born. And I remember our first appointment was over Zoom, and she asked me Philomena's name. And I said, her name's Philomena. And she said, do you know that Saint Philomena is the patron of mental health? And I just burst into tears, and I said, no, I had no idea. And so that's kind of where the therapy piece came in. And she's been with me since, and she's really helped explain to me what happened in my brain. And she's worked alongside my psychiatrist. I actually ended up switching to a new psychiatrist. I loved my previous one, but the new one, she specializes in postpartum. So she thought, okay, you should really go to someone who specializes in postpartum psychiatry. So I did that, and they have been incredible.
Oh my goodness, girl. Oh my gosh. Just, hearing the emotion and the pain. And as women listening to this podcast, again, it's so important. And it's, again, this like secret land that I think many women probably live in, like you're saying. And I just want to reiterate a million times over, there is help, and asking questions and finding support, talking to your husband, just like you were. Like, it really sounds like you were very self-aware. Like, at some point you let yourself accept, I think probably it sounds like, these emotions and these difficulties. Therefore, you took action, to find help for yourself, which I think is very important. But something too that I'd love to get into is you were talking about, of course, how therapy, now you're entering into the therapy world, trying to get the support you need. You have these medications you're taking, but then also, like, in this like journey of finding help, You ran across Dr. Walsh and Mensa Medical. And I would love to hear about how when some of these things maybe weren't working the way you wanted them to, how these kind of like, tools or ways of thinking that most people don't actually run to when it comes to mental health, like zinc and copper and metals and toxicities and things, how that played a huge role in terms of understanding this root cause.
Yes.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I got to them with my new psychiatrist. I wasn't finding relief on this. We kind of changed my cocktail of meds, as you would say, to a new SSRI. I went off the antipsychotic. So it was just on the SSRI, and then they added like an anxiety buspirone or buspar to supplement the SSRI. And we kept increasing the dose. I wasn't finding relief with each increase. And so at some point I was just like, I know there's still something wrong with my body, and I know my body has the answers. So I just started researching like nutrients and diet and exercise, because I had heard that that's kind of become a thing in the mental health world, how that can really heal your body. And fast forward to like January 2023, I kind of had another low point where I was having this suicidal ideation again. And I was on the highest dose of the SSRI I was on. And I just was like, is this it? Is this how it's going to be for me forever? And I refused to let that be my life. And so I just started doing all this research, and I stumbled upon this blog when I Googled like nutrients to heal the brain. Dr. Courtney Snyder, she's an MD psychiatrist. She did a big interview with this psychologist, Dr. William Walsh, about how there are like truly tangible blood work, hair analysis, urine tests that you can test on all people with mental health struggles or learning struggles. And they can give you real avenues for change. And so I brought that to my husband and I said, can we do this? And at this point, we're a year and a half into this journey. We had spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of moving around doctors and different therapists and things like that. So I know we were both exhausted by it. And he said, I don't know, let's think about this. Let's pray about it. So I mentioned it to my mom, and she said, Amanda, you need to do this. I remember when your brother was in grade school and he struggled with ADD, ADHD. And she said, a mom suggested I take him to this clinic in Chicago to get him tested. And your dad and I decided not to do it. We just were unsure about it. But she's like, I know you need to do something like this. So call this mom. So it turns out it was a dear family friend. They actually set Sean and I up on our blind date. So I called her and I said, I am experiencing terrible postpartum. I'm almost at a year now of postpartum. This should be over by now, the 12-month, but it's not. And she said, yeah, we took him to this place called the Pfeiffer Institute, the Pfeiffer Clinic in Chicago area. And I just started crying. That is the clinic that was referred to in this blog post. And she's like, you need to get off the phone with me and call them now. So turns out that clinic ended up closing, but the doctors who trained there under Dr. Walsh and Dr. Carl Pfeiffer, they started their own clinic called Mensa Medical just down the road. So I called Mensa Medical and spoke to the receptionist, Diane. She's incredible. And she got me in as soon as she could. And that's really where that whole body natural root cause medicine started for me. They spent, the nurse and Dr. Bowman, I go to Dr. Bowman because she specializes in women's care. They spent over 2 hours with me on telemed, just hearing my story, hearing my symptoms. And I'll never forget Dr. Bowman saying to me, like, Amanda, your story does not scare me. I have heard thousands of stories like this, and we are going to help you, and we're going to find the root of these issues. And sure enough, that's what they did. They did a bunch of hair, urine, and blood testing on me. And I popped positive for 4 of the 5 big key, I guess you could say, like nutrient issues in the body: copper toxicity, severe zinc deficiency, undermethylation and pyrrole disorder. And so the big key word is copper toxicity in pregnant women. To maintain a pregnancy, your copper level goes up, and it's supposed to drop within 24 hours of delivery. Well, some women are not getting rid of their copper. They're born with just their body doesn't have that ability to get rid of the copper. Well, that's me. So I had 4 pregnancies, boom, boom, boom. And my copper was rising with each pregnancy, and then it wasn't dropping. So of course, when I got my copper level back, it was over. And throughout this whole period, I always felt like my brain was charged, like it was on fire or energized. And even with all these dose changes of pharmaceuticals, I didn't know why. And it turns out, oh, that was the copper. Like too much copper in my body I felt like I was on fire. So that's kind of where it began. And now I finally had tangible tests in my hand to show like, yeah, I'm not crazy. Like I am just severely deficient and I have toxicity in my body.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, and Jamie and I, we also just recorded another interview about minerals. So this is kind of interesting, but it just makes me think about, gosh, like it takes a village always, right? It takes so many people when we've got health issues. I just think about how many times someone has to go through a lot of different pathways in order to find full healing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think this, in no way what I'm thinking here is in no way it undermines the fact that you needed the psychiatrist, that you mm-hmm. needed the SSRI, that you needed the therapist, that you needed your family support and your friend support. But in order for you to get to the full healing and the root cause, there was this extra pathway. And wow, how incredible to find that information, because it truly then probably gave you, like you said, this ability to be like, you're not crazy. There was something kind of wrong versus, sometimes again, when we get into our head about the mental health thing, it's kind of like, well, why? Yes. Why would this happen to me, normal Amanda, yes. That's happy and has no other issues. Right. So I think that was, I'm sure, very validating for you just to even know that there was something there that you could say, wow, like this is my body and it's not working right. And there is a way to heal that. And we'll, of course, put that information for, other people to have maybe the possibility of having that resource. But I'm just grateful because, again, these are things that people are listening right now and thinking, holy moly, like, who would have ever thought,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. And that's the thing. It's a lot of insurance companies. It's just these things are simple blood tests. So most insurance companies will cover them. And so I've had friends reach out to me because I'm very open with my story and say, Amanda, can you send me the blood tests that I should ask my doctor for? My doctor, and I'll say to them, they may not be able to read the blood tests and they may not be able to treat you, but at least you have that information to know like, oh yes, I do have copper toxicity or I do have a zinc deficiency. And then you and your husband can decide if you want to go seek further medical attention, because the Walsh Research Institute has a whole directory of physicians, nurse practitioners, healthcare providers in each area of the US where they're available. And a lot of these men and women are telemed. So yes.
So you found out that you have this copper toxicity, that you have a zinc deficiency, like the undermethylation, and then pyrrole disorder. So first I want to know, what's pyrrole disorder? That's the first question. And then the second one is like, how did you now get to understanding that and then eliminating the toxins? Like, how did you get to a point of health from knowing your diagnosis in a sense?
Yes. So pyrrole disorder, I am not very great at explaining it, but it causes like a shift in your mood. It has to do with B6 and zinc. And I'm very, as I said, not a healthcare professional, so I'm not totally understanding that. But yeah, I know it has to do with how your body kind of uses B6 and zinc, and if it depletes it or if it properly uses it. And it can cause, just intense mood changes. And then, so what Dr. Bowman did is with all my testing, she took it, analyzed it with Dr. Mensa, and they created a 6-month protocol of vitamins for me. So like a high powered, like nutraceutical is what it can be called. So very heavy doses of vitamins, not just something you would get in a multivitamin off the shelf, like very high doses. And so they were all compounded by a special pharmacy. And so I had 4 tablets in the morning and 5 at night, all these vitamins put in like my own multivitamin just made for me. And so I titrated up very slowly on that. And that slow titration helped the copper to release from my body very slowly, because that cannot be fun. It's not a fun experience detoxing from copper. And luckily, I was, like I said, so research driven that I looked up every review I could find about Mensa Medical. And there was one mom who posted about her son's recovery. And I just messaged her and told her just a little blip about my story. And she and I became fast friends. And she really journeyed with me as I started going through the detox, like rooting me on every other day. Like, how are you feeling today? Like, if you're feeling more jittery, that's very normal. You're going through the detox. And so she's become a dear friend. And I get tested now every 6 months, and praise God, after my 6-month testing this past November, all my levels have normalized. So, and I just want to make a note too, like copper and zinc on a standard lab test, it might say you're in range, but according to Dr. Walsh's protocol, he uses a very different range. So if you looked at my LabCorp sheet, it would say I was in range, but according to him, I was totally out of range. So that's one thing to note, that the lab ranges are different. But it's been so successful. And we decided, my husband and I, to get our children tested because everything I have can be genetically passed down to them through the womb. So, and of course, we found out I did pass everything down to them, the zinc deficiency, the copper toxicity, everything. So the undermethylation. And so now they are on their own nutrient plans, and we're trying to fix that before they hit adulthood so that they will not experience, like my daughters hopefully will never experience what I've experienced, because they won't have these issues that are underlying.
Yeah, that's amazing. Genetics are real. So I'm glad that you obviously thought about that and helping the rest of your family. I hope, this is so fresh, Amanda. That's the other thing, is like, this just happened, Yeah. So a lot of times people talk about their stories from years ago. So, a lot of people aren't ready to share their stories so soon. So how courageous that in such a dark place, you're able to share this story so eloquently with our listeners. And again, this will go into the next step of, and kind of closing up this interview, as you want to share your story because you want to help other women. So what is it now, and in this process of redemption that you went through and healing, what is it that you want now for other people out there, other women and families, to learn from all this from you?
Yes. I want to first say thank you to all the women and men and families and faith community, just everyone who journeyed with us. Because it, like you referred to earlier, it truly does take a village. And I think that's what we're made for. Like, God made us for community. And my sister-in-law said to me once, like, in the darkest hour, Amanda, let others help you. This is their path to heaven. And that really helped me to better accept help, because I have a lot of pride, and it's hard for me to accept help. And that is why my husband, Sean, and I want to create the Philomena Project. We're working on that right now. It kind of has 3 initiatives. We want to shine light on the darkness that is mental health in pregnancy and postpartum. So women and their families can come out of that darkness and not feel shame and this, like, get rid of the stigma that is there and just help women to be in the light and to flourish in their vocation as wife and mother, daughter, friend. And so the first kind of step, we're very much at the beginning, but we're starting with diaper stations where we'll, if there's a changing area in a local church, we'll have diapers, wipes, anything that a woman might need in those crazy moments of a blowout or whatever. And then I'll also provide some holy cards as well as some postpartum resources. So women can have that. So that's kind of our first step. And then our second initiative, this comes into play with my dad, who is an OBGYN, and praise God for him. He is with me in the journey. He said to me long ago, when I was going through the Mensa testing, Amanda, I took the Creighton course. I'll take this course for you. So he is actually starting the Walsh protocol training in March and April of this year. And my brother too, he's a physician resident up in Michigan. And so they're going to go through the training for me and hopefully help me my husband and I create what we want to call the Philomena protocol, a set of new questionnaires for mental health during pregnancy and postpartum to better catch, just symptoms of what your body is saying is going on. And then blood tests that offered to women, if they would like, they have that option to test their copper, their zinc, their histamine for that methylation status, to see, are they susceptible to postpartum and what can we do ahead of time to prevent it, and get to the root issue. And then the third one is, I've always loved graphic design, and it's kind of cool how the Lord, he takes a dream and he uses it in such a unique way. And now, like, my greatest cross is now becoming my greatest passion. I would never take this time away. I'm so grateful for this cross because I feel like the Lord's put on my heart like a mission to share this story. And so I just want to create just different tangible resources and physicians' offices. I want to make a little badge, postpartum or OBGYN nurses can wear on the delivery floor of, so if there is a mom in the delivery room having those thoughts, I can raise my hand. So yeah, it's very much at the beginning, but I have some big dreams.
Oh my gosh. I love, you're just like a little trailblazer. You're a trailblazer. Truly, goodness gracious. Can you imagine? Honestly, I've never heard of this copper thing, in terms of every time. And then if you're getting pregnant, year after year, and then you're not able to eliminate or detox that copper, how big of a deal that is. And then it makes me think about copper IUDs and all these other things too.
It all plays into it.
And if women have problems eliminating that could really play a huge role. So this is kind of a new, in my mind, and maybe I don't know for you, Teresa, too, but this is a whole kind of new land, which I think is definitely worth exploring. And you are bringing this to our listeners and to so many more people into your future. So we're so happy to have you on our show today. As we close up, of course, I'm going to ask you the question I ask all of our interviewees. What do you wish every woman knew about her hormone genius?
I really wish that each woman just knows that you are uniquely made. God made you to be this beautiful woman, and that you are a gift no matter what struggle you go through, and that the answers can be found in your body. He made us these beautiful women with these beautiful bodies, and just to look at them and to cherish them and to know that they have the answers. And when we work in connection with the Lord, we can really truly find peace. And I think, the body is so beautiful. And I want us to know we don't need to work against it. We just need to use it to find the answers.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being with us today and for sharing your story. And we'll put all the resources and how people can stay in touch with your work in our show notes. And we'll hopefully be helping a lot of people with this information. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for all the work you all do, and take care.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for listening to the Hormone Genius podcast. Please remember to share our podcast with your friends and family, and also follow us on social media. If you were not aware, we have a YouTube channel, so if you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, we would appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. We are excited to journey alongside you as you discover the beauty and the genius of your hormones.